Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. We were at Applebee's. Not the place you expect a life to end, but that's the thing about real endings. They never need fireworks. Just one sentence. Delivered over a plate of half-eaten chicken tenders and a watered-down margarita. She didn't look angry. That's what hit hardest. She looked relaxed, like the thought had lived inside her for a long time and finally found a way out. She said it between bites, as if commenting on the weather. "You were my biggest mistake in my youth." I looked at her, fork frozen midair. No raised voice. No drama. Just that cold little smirk she always wore when she wanted control of a moment. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to. Because when someone shows you their real thoughts that effortlessly, the worst thing you can do is give them the satisfaction of confusion. I set my fork down, looked her right in the eye, and I said, "Then I'll fix that. Now." Her smirk faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. I didn't storm out. I didn't throw my napkin. I finished my drink, paid the bill, and that night, while she fell asleep scrolling Amazon next to me, I opened a new note on my phone and wrote 3 words. 72 hours. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I would. Because when someone calls you their mistake, they don't realize what kind of clarity they've just gifted you. That was Friday night. By Monday morning, she would no longer recognize the version of me she thought she could dismiss. And I wouldn't raise my voice once. I wouldn't plead. I wouldn't reason. I'd just do what most men never get around to doing. Respond with silence. Calculated, cold, irreversible silence. She thought those words at dinner were the end of a fight, but they were the beginning of her fall. And the timer? It had already started. The next morning, I woke up before her. That hadn't happened in months. Usually, she was up at 6, in full control of the morning. Her schedule, her protein smoothie, her gym clothes laid out like a little shrine to discipline. But that Sunday, I woke up to the sound of nothing. No blender. No tapping phone screen. Just her breathing, heavy and peaceful, like she'd slept through the weight of what she'd said. I watched her for a few seconds. Not out of love. Out of finality. It's strange when you realize you're done. Not in anger. Just in certainty. You don't need to talk yourself into it. Your body knows before your mind does. You move different. Think different. Breathe different. I didn't touch her. Didn't nudge. I got up, showered, left the house. No explanation. No note. I drove with no direction. Ended up grabbing coffee from Dunkin' and parking behind a Home Depot, just sitting there in the lot like a ghost in a truck. That's where I made the first move. I opened our shared bank app and removed her access to 2 of my personal accounts. Not the main ones. Just the backups. The ones she didn't think I remembered she used. I didn't need to explain. She'd figure it out soon enough. When I got back home, she was on the phone, laughing. Her best friend, probably. The one who never liked me. The one who called me safe during our wedding toast. She paused when she saw me walk in. Studied my face like she was expecting some tension. I smiled. That scared her more than anything else could have. Because I wasn't playing into the setup. I wasn't rising to the bait. I was somewhere else already. Inside. By dinner, she was asking questions. Not directly. Just small jabs wrapped in casual tones. Asking if I was in a mood. Asking if I was still thinking about Applebee's. I said no. And I meant it. Because I wasn't thinking about her words anymore. I was thinking about my exit. Not the dramatic kind. The clean one. The kind that doesn't slam doors, just never walks through them again. She didn't realize yet, but she was already speaking to someone who'd stopped trying. And when a man stops trying, it's never temporary. It's the start of everything she can't undo. Monday morning started like any other. Except this time, I wasn't rushing. She was already in the kitchen, sipping Starbucks from a reusable cup, flipping through her iPhone like the world owed her attention. She barely looked up when I walked in. That used to sting. Now it was background noise. I grabbed my keys. She asked if I'd be home for dinner. That felt new. Not the question, the tone. It wasn't kindness. It was curiosity. Suspicion. Like she was trying to gauge how much rope she still had to play with. I said, maybe. Then I left. I drove straight to my storage unit. Not to move anything yet. Just to check the lock. The code. The insurance. I hadn't used it in over a year, but now it felt necessary. Like the first piece of a quiet puzzle only I could see forming. After that, I stopped by my buddy Eric's office. He used to work IT before going private. I asked for a favor. Nothing illegal, just clarity. I gave him access to our shared laptop, the one she swore she barely used. He didn't need long. 2 hours later, I had screenshots. A message chain with a coworker named Luke, way too familiar. Flirty, condescending. At one point, she literally wrote, "Marriage makes you forget what being alive feels like." She wasn't talking about me. She was talking around me. About how she'd settled for stability. About how he was the safe choice. About how I wonder sometimes what it would have been like if I'd chosen differently. I didn't yell, didn't confront. I just stared at those words and felt nothing. Not betrayal, not heartbreak, just confirmation. She hadn't called me a mistake on impulse. She'd meant it. That dinner was just her mask slipping. A moment where the internal became external. And now? Now I had reason. Justification. Not that I needed it. Because when a man hits the moment where emotion dies, he doesn't beg for repair. He plans for release. I forwarded the screenshots to my personal email, deleted them from the laptop, logged out. At lunch, I canceled the Join Amazon account. She'd noticed within the hour. By the time I got home, she was on edge, asking questions, throwing fake smiles. But I was done decoding her mood swings. I'd read her truth in plain text. And now, I was moving in silence. Tuesday came fast. Too fast for her to catch on, but not fast enough for me. I left before sunrise, told no one. No work messages. No calls. No coffee with her in the kitchen. No updates. No schedule. Just gone. I drove north without a destination. Kept the radio off. Let the silence press in. Somewhere past the county line, I stopped at a gas station, got a Red Bull and a pack of jerky, and checked into a no-name motel with cash. That room was quiet, cold, basic, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. No fake smiles. No tension in the air. No walking on eggshells around someone who couldn't even look at me without regret in her eyes. By noon, the calls started. First one, then three. By 5 p.m., she'd sent 4 texts. Not "Where are you?" She wasn't ready to show panic yet. Instead, it was all subtle. "Everything okay? Thought we were doing dinner tonight. Can you pick up almond milk on the way back? Let me know if you're working late." I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because silence was finally working louder than my voice ever had. I stayed in that motel room and watched her unravel in real time through notifications I didn't open. She called my sister. She messaged my coworker. She even texted Eric. They didn't respond the way she wanted. They didn't know what to say because I hadn't told anyone anything. That's the thing about planning a clean exit. You don't leave breadcrumbs. You leave nothing. That night, I lay in bed and thought about the man I used to be. The one who'd bend, explain, try. Who'd sit across from her, trying to reason with someone who'd already written his obituary in her head. And then I thought about the new man, the one building space like armor. Not revenge. Not spite. Just clarity. At 2 a.m., she called again. I didn't answer. Didn't silence the phone either. I let it ring until it stopped. She had finally noticed the absence. But I was already gone. Not just from the house. From her reach. And the best part? She couldn't even tell anyone what happened, because to the world, nothing had. Luke. That was the name she never said around me. Too casual in texts. Too frequent in jokes. Too useful as an escape from reality. I knew the type. The office flirt with a marriage of his own and zero respect for boundaries. I didn't need to confront her. I just needed to know more about him. The next morning, I drove 2 towns over to a friend of mine, Dean. We'd done business together back when I worked logistics, and he owed me a favor. His company had access to background intel. Not anything shady. Just the kind of professional profile you don't want people digging through, unless you've got something to hide. Dean pulled his records. It took less than 10 minutes. Luke had a file. Not a criminal one, but messy enough. 2 HR warnings. One for inappropriate DMs, the other for showing up at a coworker's apartment uninvited. Nothing had ever stuck. But the patterns were there. I didn't say a word. Didn't call HR. Didn't forward the file to her company. I sent one screenshot, anonymously, to her team's group chat from a dummy account. No threats. No message. Just facts. By that evening, I watched it play out. She came home flustered. Bag dropped at the door, jacket half off her shoulder. She didn't speak at first, just paced the kitchen. Then she said, "There was something going around at work. About Luke." I nodded. She didn't know I already knew more than she ever would. She kept talking, half to herself, half to me. It's probably some jealous guy. Or a troll. But now everyone's acting weird. And HR's asking questions. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the fridge, grabbed a Coke, and left the room. She followed. Asked why I was so quiet. I said, just listening. But I wasn't. I was observing. Watching her world tilt ever so slightly. Not enough to fall. Yet. But just enough to see that Luke, her fantasy of what could have been, wasn't bulletproof. And soon, he wouldn't even be employed. I didn't ruin him. I just let his truth surface at the right time. In the right place. And when it did, she would lose more than a distraction. She'd lose the illusion that her life was better on the other side of me. It started small. Little cracks in the surface of her perfect image. At the gym, a friend who usually stopped to chat gave her a quick nod and kept walking. At work, the team meeting was shorter. Tighter. She said they skipped her update. I said nothing. At dinner with her sister. Yes, she still insisted I come. The silence got louder than usual. Her sister didn't bring up the promotion. Didn't ask about us. Just sipped her wine and watched her with eyes that knew more than they let on. That's what happens when the mask slips and you don't realize it's already off. People start treating you like they've seen behind it. She came home more distracted. Started double-checking her phone. Got quieter in the evenings. I noticed she even muted our shared Facebook posts. Didn't delete them. Just stopped engaging. As if pretending nothing was happening would stop something from happening. But everything was already in motion. I was home. Physically. But not once did I reach for her. Not once did I ask, "Are you okay?" Because for the first time, I didn't care to fix it. That Sunday, we went to Target. She insisted we shop together, something she hadn't cared about in months. She grabbed 2 candles. Asked which one I liked better. I said, "Whichever you want." She frowned. "Why don't you ever give an opinion anymore?" I looked at her and said, "You didn't like them when I did." That ended the conversation. In the checkout line, she tried to loop her arm into mine. Instinct, maybe. Or panic. I stepped forward instead. Paid for the cart. Walked out to the car. She followed, slower than usual. Like gravity had changed. Because it had. That night, I watched her scroll through her phone longer than usual. She paused on a picture of us from last year. My arm around her, both of us smiling. She stared at it, then locked the screen. Didn't say a word. She knew something was shifting. Not just between us, but around her. The walls weren't closing in. They were stepping back, leaving her alone with the echoes of her choices. And for the first time, I think she realized she wasn't just losing her husband. She was losing the room. The first time she made breakfast in months, I didn't even notice at first. She cooked bacon the way I used to like it. Scrambled eggs with too much pepper, just how I'd always done them. The house smelled like a Sunday from years ago. But the timing was wrong. It wasn't love. It was strategy. She placed the plate in front of me, sat across the table with that nervous smile she hadn't used since we were still trying to impress each other. I ate in silence. She watched like she was waiting for something. A thank you, maybe, or a spark of hope. I gave her neither. The food tasted fine, but the gesture was hollow. Because by then, I had already started spending my nights elsewhere, not with another woman, but with myself. In my own apartment, one she didn't know about yet. A small space over a garage I'd found on Facebook Marketplace. Paid cash. Quiet. Clean. Mine. No photos. No memories. No noise. Just space. That morning, I watched her pour coffee, hands shaking just a little. She started talking about the first time we met, some memory at a Waffle House after a concert. She laughed softly. Said, "I miss how simple we were back then." I didn't laugh. Didn't nod. I just said, "We were simple because we hadn't lied yet." She stopped smiling. She knew what I meant. That week, she tried harder. Called me during the day. Sent throwback photos from old vacations. Even lit a Bath and Body Works candle at night. The one she used to say gave her headaches. She sat closer on the couch. Talked more. Tried to initiate closeness. I didn't push her away. But I didn't move toward her either. She was touching the outline of a man who was no longer there. And she knew it. By Thursday, I noticed her eyes looked different. Not angry. Not defensive. Just tired. Like the performance was costing her more than she expected. She finally said, "I don't know what's going on with you." I looked at her. Really looked. And said, "I do." That silence afterward? It was the first time she didn't try to fill it. Because she finally understood, she was no longer dealing with the version of me that begged for crumbs. She was facing someone who had already eaten elsewhere. and wasn't hungry anymore. She waited until Saturday. Maybe she thought a weekend would soften me. That nostalgia would hit harder on our usual slow days. The ones that used to start with Costco runs and end with wine and reruns. But this time, she wasn't playing it soft. She sat me down at the dining table. Same spot where, just weeks ago, she'd looked me in the eye and called me her biggest mistake. Now, the tone had changed. She wasn't defensive anymore. She was searching. Her voice wavered between guilt and frustration. She said, "You're not here. You haven't been here." Then she leaned in like proximity could fix what distance had already sealed. "I don't know what you're trying to prove," she said. "But if you want to talk, I'm here." I looked at her. Not like I used to. Not like a husband trying to bridge the gap. I looked at her like a man seeing the edge of a chapter he no longer belonged in. And I said, "There's nothing to talk about." Her eyes flared. Like she expected anger. Deserved it, even. But I wasn't angry. I was done. That's what broke her. She stood, paced, sat back down. Then she asked, "So that's it? You're just giving up?" I didn't answer. Because there was nothing to give up. This wasn't surrender. It was extraction. Strategic. Final. Controlled. She tried again. Talked about the memories. The house. The years. Even mentioned my mom. Said she missed how they used to talk on the phone. I nodded once. But said nothing. Then she did the thing people do when they're cornered and out of tools. She cried. Not performatively. Not loud. Just quiet, tired tears. But I didn't reach for her. Didn't offer tissue. Didn't remind her of who I'd been. Because I wasn't that man anymore. I was the consequence. And in that moment, she understood something brutal. That the absence of hate wasn't mercy. It was precision. Later that night, I slept in the guest room. Door closed. Phone off. Wallet packed. I wasn't staying another week. She just didn't know it yet. But soon, the silence she couldn't handle tonight would stretch into days. And then into a life where my name would only exist in past tense. I left at 6:42 a.m. The house was still dark. She was asleep in the bedroom, curled up on her side like nothing had cracked, like her world wasn't about to split down the center. I moved quietly. Not out of guilt, out of finality. There was nothing left to say. Nothing worth dramatizing. The suitcase I'd packed days ago was already in the truck. I'd returned the keys to the garage rental the night before. I wouldn't need it anymore. I had something better now. Clarity. By the time she woke up, I was already halfway to the coast. My phone was off. My name scrubbed from every shared account. Credit cards frozen. My car title transferred back to me. Her name was gone from every login, every joint platform, every shadow of ours. No texts. No call. Just gone. And that, I knew, would speak louder than anything I could ever yell across a dinner table. That morning, she sent a string of messages. They started polite, then confused, then angry. By evening, they were just dots. Seen status. No reply. On Monday, her sister called. Left a voicemail. Asked if everything was okay. Said she hadn't heard from her since the thing with Luke at work. Her tone wasn't concerned. It was disappointed. Tuesday, a mutual friend removed her from a group chat. Wednesday, the HR department encouraged her to take personal time. By Thursday, she posted an old photo of us on Instagram. Captioned it with something vague like, "Some people only understand your value when you're gone." Comments were off. Because she knew what would come. Silence. Indifference. Distance. I wasn't watching out of cruelty. I wasn't even watching closely. But I heard enough from the edges. She started showing up at places I used to go. A Waffle House we loved. A park where I ran. She'd linger. Wait. Hope. I never appeared. Because I wasn't in the past anymore. I was in motion. I joined a gym by the beach. Reconnected with a friend from college. Started freelance work I'd been putting off for years. Every night, I made dinner for myself. Poured one glass of whiskey. Slept in a bed with no ghosts. I didn't check her updates. Didn't ask about her. Didn't need closure. Because the final chapter doesn't need punctuation. It just needs peace. And for the first time in years, I had it. While she had everything she once said she wanted. Freedom. Silence. And a man who no longer needed to be fixed. Because he'd already rebuilt himself. It was 3 weeks after I left. I was sitting outside a quiet cafe near the pier, nursing a black coffee and reading on my iPad. The sky was soft that morning. The kind of blue that doesn't demand anything from you. I remember hearing heels before I saw her. Familiar, fast, unsteady. She stood a few feet away, like someone approaching a ghost she wasn't sure was real. I looked up. There she was, hair undone, eyes swollen, not from crying, but from nights of not sleeping. She didn't wear makeup, didn't pretend. For once, she looked human and completely out of place in my world. She said my name like it still belonged to her. I closed the book without reacting. She asked how I was. I said I was fine. She hesitated, then said she was just in the area, even though we both knew she'd driven over an hour. Said she'd been thinking, remembering. Said she missed me, that she'd made mistakes, that she hadn't meant those words at dinner, the ones she threw like a match into the life we'd built. I didn't interrupt, didn't respond, just let her talk. It wasn't an apology. It was a scramble. She wanted to feel seen again. Important. But I wasn't the mirror she once used. I told her calmly, you were right. I was your mistake. And I fixed it. That hit her harder than a scream. She didn't cry, just stood there, then asked if we could talk again. Try something. Anything. I stood up, finished my coffee, and I said it. Not with anger. With clarity. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. She looked like she wanted to say more, to reach for something that wasn't there anymore. But I was already walking. Past her. Past us. Toward a car she didn't recognize, in a life she'd never be invited into again. And as I drove away, I didn't check the mirror. Didn't need to see her standing alone. Because this time I knew. She wouldn't follow. She couldn't. Not because I blocked her path, but because I no longer lived in a place where she existed. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.